Hey there, this is Lena, the host and producer of the podcast, The Streets of Our Lives. This episode, just like episode number 1, is quite short. If you haven't listened to episode 1, Welcome to the Streets of Our Lives, I highly suggest it. In that episode, I explain what the title of the show means, what you can expect to hear from the episodes, and why I started this podcast in the first place. I will leave a link to episode 1 in the description so you can easily go listen to it after this one. So the point of this particular episode is to invite you to collaborate on the podcast. And what do I mean by collaborate? Well, there's different ways I invite others to collaborate on this show. One way you can collaborate is by considering to be a guest. There are episodes featuring guests that I invite to speak on the show. Some guests share about overcoming their own difficult life experiences. Other guests join me in sharing information about their areas of expertise, which may relate to mental health, emotional well-being, relationships, or physical wellness. If you or someone you know may be interested in coming onto the show, please fill out a guest interest form for me to consider. Over time, I have become quite selective about who I allow to come onto the show, so I cannot promise I will bring on everyone who fills out a form. I will share a link to the guest interest form in the description of this episode. Another way you can collaborate is by submitting a story or aspect of your life that you would like to be shared and read on the show. There are special series on this podcast where I read aloud submissions that listeners send in. These submissions are very specific to the different series on the show. To find out more, please look at the submission forms to decide if you would like to make an anonymous submission. Like I mentioned earlier about the guest interest forms, I'm also quite selective about the submissions I choose to share on the show. This means I cannot guarantee every single one of them will be shared. I will put a link to these different forms in the description of the episode. Lastly, a final way you can collaborate is by sending me your feedback on the show itself. If you have feedback, comments, or suggestions on the podcast as a whole or on a specific episode, I would be honored if you would send it in to me. This helps me know what you, the listener, are resonating with and what you would like to see more or less of. I will make sure to share a link to my contact form so you can send me your feedback. I don't know about you, but I enjoy it when my favorite content creators invite their followers to be a part of the content creation process. It creates an actual sense of community and brings the listeners and the hosts closer together. I would really love to do the same on this podcast. With that said, if you rather just enjoy the podcast as a listener and not collaborate, I understand that too. I truly hope as you continue listening to the show, you feel encouraged and inspired as you navigate your own journey. This is Lena LaRue. I'll see you on the streets.